Okay, can we have a quick look at chapter 17? I want to have a very quick look at chapter 17 of Things Fall Apart, please. Remember, you should be taking notes. You should be taking notes when you're doing this. Can I suggest that if this is the first time you've looked at chapter 17, you're having a laugh, right? And if it's only the second time you've looked at chapter 17, you're having a wee bit of a laugh. Right? You should have read this a couple of times, this book, but you should be in amongst it and really understanding it. Right? Can I also suggest as well, if you haven't went back and looked at the poems, which we're going to look at next Thursday night, a week on Thursday, see if you haven't done that, you're having a laugh. Right? There's no way that you're going to be able to accumulate all that knowledge. You should have been reading these things and just thinking about these things. Right, so if you haven't, that's what you do tonight, or Thursday night. You go and read and think, and look at your notes and think. Okay? Because, as I say, if you've not done that, you need to do some more reading. You're not just having a laugh, I think, would probably be the what I'm talking about. Okay, chapter 16, chapter 17. Right, so basically, we're now at this stage where the missionaries have turned up. Okay? When you look at different analysis, some people say these are the turning points. I've not concentrated an awful lot on the missionaries because I think there's lots of other things going on in this book, right? But some people will argue this book's really about missionaries. I don't think it is. I think it's about the relationship that Okonkwo has with his son and his tribe and his father, right? And that's the focus that I've had on it all the way through. Right? But I think you need to kind of consider a little bit about this. So let's have a quick read. The missionaries spent their first 4 or 5 nights in the marketplace and went into the village in the morning to preach the gospel. They asked who the king of the village was, but the villagers told them there was no king. We have men of high title and the chief priests and the elders, they said. Right, so the idea being that, again, it's that a thing we talked about quite often, was this idea that, this is a highly organised and structured society. Okay? And that's the thing that we go back and look at. If you look 3 or 4 paragraphs down, the next morning the crazy men actually began to clear a part of the forest and to build their house. Okay? Right, what have they done? They've suggested, they've come along, the Ibu have come along, the missionaries have come along and said, can we get a bit of land? The Ibu went, absolutely brilliant. Of course you can. What we'll do is we'll give you that bit of evil forest, because that evil forest, that's bad luck. And the thing is, if you go to the evil forest, you're not going to die or get something and you'll end up going away. The thing is, quite cleverly, what do? What happens? It doesn't pay off, does it? So there's an irony there. There's an irony there that they thought that. And this is when things, to a certain extent, start to go wrong. The Ibu have suggested go there because they think that it's all going to be horrific and mixed up. And it doesn't. Right? So to a certain extent, the next time you read it, if you read it again, think about all the times when things fall apart in this book. Cultures fall apart, relationships fall apart, relationships between father and son fall apart, relationship between...
Seems like things start to go wrong. I thought, I can't really think in terms of Okonkwo, things went wrong and they got expelled.
Yeah, well, you're right. That's one of the things go wrong. But things go wrong in the society, things go wrong in the perception, things go wrong in his idea. He doesn't think these Christians are going to do anything. But things are falling apart. So as you read through it, Andrew, look at all the things that are going. It's like an amalgamation of oh no moments. Oh no, oops, oh no, ooh. Right? Go back and read it and look at it in that context. Right? Okay? Right? Okay? So, the next morning, the crazy men actually began to clear apart the forest. The inhabitants of Mabanta expected them all to be dead within 4 days. The first day passed, and the second, the third, and the fourth, and none of them died. Everyone was puzzled. And then it became known that the white man's fetish had unbelievable powers. It was said that he wore glasses in his eyes so he could see and talk to evil spirits. Not long after that, he won his first 3 converts. So it was like they tried to play a card, and it didn't pay off. Got it? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. Though Noah had been attracted to the new faith from the very first day, he kept it secret. What does his father do? What does Nuoi's father always do? What does he always, but in terms of keeping things secret, isn't that what he always does? So in many ways, Nuoi's hiding that sort of stuff, right? He dared not go too near the missionaries for fear of his father. But whenever they came to preach in the open marketplace or the village playground, Nuoi was there, and he was already beginning to know some of the simple stories they told. Okay, so this is the end of the relationship between Nuoi, the son, and Okonkwo, the father. Much like the relationship that broke down between Unoka and Okonkwo. Right? So things are falling apart here. Things are going wrong. The relationship which we probably discussed earlier on about this idea of trying to make him a better person, trying to make him manly, is starting to fall apart. Okay? Yes? Everybody okay with that? Right, okay. And I'm going to go right, I'm just flicking through, boom, 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 boom. This is about how all things went. Right. Can we go to the last two paragraphs in this chapter? Oh, sorry, third one. Right. So, the paragraph before, Nuoi did not fully understand, but he was happy to leave his father. He would return later to his mother and his brother and sisters and convert them to the new faith. But he's left. As Okonkwo sat in his hut that night, gazing into a log fire, he thought over the matter. A sudden fury rose within him, and he felt a strong desire to take up his machete, go to the church and wipe out the entire vile and miscreant gang. But one further thought, he told himself, that Nuoi was not worth fighting for. Why, he cried in his heart, should he, Okonkwo of all people, be cursed with such a son? You know that, what's the phrase, something of the fathers is carried out in the sons. This whole idea, there's great irony here, that he thought that by behaving the way that he did, he would create a strong son, and ultimately what did he do? He distanced his son from himself. So it's like the self-perpetuating idea. Yeah? Are they happy with that? You know, by trying to make Nuoi more like himself so that he wouldn't be like his father, he's broken down that relationship. He's turned his son away from him. Okay? To abandon the gods, we're kind of halfway down this paragraph. To abandon the gods of one's father and go about with a lot of effeminate men, clucking like old hens, was the very depth of abomination. Suppose when he died, all his male children decided to follow Nuoi's steps and abandon their ancestors. Okonkwo felt a cold shudder run through him at the terrible prospect, like the prospect of annihilation. But surely there's a great irony there, is the fact that he did that to his own father. He doesn't respect his own previous ancestors. So Okonkwo himself is a confused man. We've talked about this a lot of times. Okonkwo is a man who's confused, right? Who's got this sense of the past and this sense of he does things right, but ultimately he doesn't, because everything he does is a bit of a disaster all round. Yep, okay, happy with that. And then, second last paragraph, Okonkwo was popularly called the Roaring Flame. As he looked into the log fire, he recalled his name. He was a flaming fire. How then could he have begotten a son like Nuoi, degenerate and effeminate female? Perhaps this was not his son. No, he could not be. His wife had played him false. Typical misogynist, yeah? It's not his problem, it's not his fault, it's not the way he treated his son, it's the fact that his wife slept about. Right? So that was his response. He would teach her, again, how very Okonkwo was going to beat somebody up. But Nuoi resembled his grandfather Unoka, who was Okonkwo's father. He pushed the thought out of his mind. He, Okonkwo, was called a flaming fire. How could he have begotten a woman for a son? At Nuoi's age, Okonkwo had already become famous throughout the Umofia for his wrestling and his fearlessness. He sighed heavily, and as if in sympathy, the smouldering log also sighed. And immediately Okonkwo's eyes were opened, and he saw the whole matter clearly. Living fire begets cold, impotent ash. He sighed again deeply. Right, so what he had there was he had an epiphany moment. Does everybody know what an epiphany is? He had an epiphany. And what's he seen? He's actually seen his own demise. He's seen the end of the Ibu. He's seen the end of what he perceives as valued. He saw it all, right? The idea, and that's, remember we talked about this idea of foreshadowing in this book. All the way through it, we get references to the end because it's a tragedy, right? There's that sense of, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And he just keeps doing it. And there's the tragedy, and he sees it. So, living fire begets cold, impotent ash. That's it. In many ways, that defines Okonkwo's. Right, okay. Right, that's cool. Good. Okay, that's great. Right, well, living fire, he's a living fire. Yeah. Right? But ultimately, when a fire burns out, it creates ash. And ash is useless, isn't it? That's the end of it. From dust to dust. No, from dust maneth came. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. He was that living flame, but ultimately that flame's now burned out. Yeah, I would use that as that's one of my big quotes for this book. Right? And that's the problem. That's the tragedy. That's the concern. That's the idea that this is one of those many turning points in this book. But ultimately, things are falling apart. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he sees himself as a relic. I think from this point, lots of things spiral. It's very interesting, different interpretations of it. But this is one of my key points. This is where that self-realisation is. Oh no, I've not quite got this right. Right? And it's that sense of foreshadowing that goes there.
Because before that he says that he says that he
Some man.
Yeah.
So he's good. Well, I was going, you've screwed up here, man, on the tape, right? But you've messed it up here, right? But then again, he's so arrogant that he goes, it'll all be fine, right? And that's the tragedy and the irony of all this book. Okay, we cool with that? It gives us a wee bit of context around Okonkwo, doesn't it? Right? And then actually from then on, it just goes haywire, messy up. You know, he shoots the guy, gets sent away to his mother's place, comes back after 7 years. What happens after 7 years? The whole place is kind of taking a turn towards the missionaries. He's an outsider. He thinks he's going to be able to walk back in and take over. Okay? Right, are we cool with that? Does everybody understand that? Is that nothing new to anyone? They deal with this quite nicely in this handout here, which I'm going to just give out right now, actually. I'll turn this off.